Yeah.
Oh, I'm moving over then.
Order
aren't
of process.
I? Okay, ladies. Speaking to the mic, I heard that part.
Our names and what we do, is that what you said?
Yeah, can you tell us that again?
We were building relationships. We were networking. A squirrel.
You just want to lead off your talk with your name and maybe a brief explanation of what organization you're with, and then go for it.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Susan Cox, and I am from Dayspring Villa. I'm the assistant director of the shelter, and we are a domestic violence shelter, and we are a shelter that is certified by the State Attorney General's office to help adult women of human sexual trafficking. We can house 55 women and children. Right now, we are 3 months away from finishing a wing built especially for human trafficking, and we will be able to house 17 human trafficking guests in one side and domestic violence on the other side in separate wings. And if you're thinking, why would you separate them? Yes, the trauma levels are so different. You do want to house them and give them different opportunities for different living situations. Okay, so that's about Dayspring Villa.
And I'm Lori Basie. I'm with No Boundaries International. And we actually started working internationally, hence the name International. In 2011, they asked us, we really just train and mobilize groups to go out right into the areas where the action is. So whether it be child soldiers or rebels or sex slaves or disaster zones, our specialty is to go in to that area. And so we went and sat down on Robinson, which is really one of our field studies right now in the south side of Oklahoma City, and just watched to see what was happening. And since then, we've trained a street outreach team, and they go out on a routine basis. Last year, in just a 10-block radius, they encountered over 450 they had over 450 encounters and 150 hours of girls that were either being prostituted or trafficked. So the numbers are just outrageous. We've literally bought a little house and moved a couple into the neighborhood and are integrating in, so it's not us and them. We ran a fire station right on the track from the city where we have a clothes closet and resources and a food pantry. We're going into the elementary and the high school in that area. The kids are exposed on a daily basis to traffic victims, Johns, those who are being prostituted, and pimps. And so we just are really at that ground level. So we go into the crazy areas and have had to learn how to do that so we're safe, and so those who we're serving are safe, because we can really cause a lot of harm and a lot of damage. And so everything has to be done in order and with structure. It's low and slow. And then typically with those that we encounter, then I personally specialize in trauma. And so we have a wraparound service where it almost looks like a community-based home health, unless by chance the majority of those that we are working with are right in the middle of an illegal situation, including Johns and pimps who also seek services from us. And so we do not do any housing. We refer that to the wonderful expertise in that area. And so we do almost like a wraparound home health base where we go literally where they are, whether it's a hotel or the rental house or the whatever, and do wraparound services. We transition them out of illegal activity into stable living. And so that's kind of what we do.
Hi, my name's Sonia, and I'm director of Beautiful Dreams Society, and I'm also a pastor. And we started internationally as well in a small country in South Africa called Lesotho, and we began there by building a safe home and really began serving this population, these women that are being trafficked there in Lesotho and their children. And so we've been there 4 years now, and we have a home, a safe house, and we also have a transition home. And a few months ago, we opened up an orphanage because Lesotho has the second highest AIDS and HIV rate per capita of anybody in the country. And so you have single and double orphans raising each other, and they're very vulnerable to matters of trafficking. So we've got that going on. And then here, a year ago, it was October 8th, when we opened our doors, we run a emergency shelter. We do the same as Susan here does, only very, very few beds and a lot shorter time under our belt. But we have been open since October 8th, and through the home, we've been able to serve 33 women and their children. We have helped others non-residentially, but just in the last year, we've been able to help 33 women. So I'll go more into that, yeah, in a bit.
Hi, my name is David McLeod. I am a professor here at the Anna Henry Zarrow School of Social Work at the University of Oklahoma. I'm also an affiliate faculty with with Women's and Gender Studies and our Center for Social Justice here on campus. So I guess I'm here because I research the development of criminal behavior and that intersection between crime and trauma and gender. So you might wonder how does that interact with human trafficking? It has a lot to do with human trafficking because in my work I find that men and women process their experiences of trauma differently, that their behaviors manifest differently, and the type of social and relational interactions they have are differential as well. So if we want to implement interventions to try to assist these folks, then we have to understand exactly how these really complex dynamics are affecting them and their relational patterns. Also here at the School of Social Work, I'm our big proponent of forensic social work, which is a little bit of a new topic or something that's gaining steam nationally right now, and that's the intersection of social work practice, either clinical or community practice, with anything that has to do with the law or crime or survivorship. So my clinical experience, actually technically my clinical experience starts before I was a social worker. I was a police detective in Little Rock, Arkansas for almost a decade before I transitioned into social work. I worked cases of child abuse and sexual assault, and actually had my first contact with trafficking and sex work there when I was on a gang task force, and we were trying to understand how these workers, sex workers, were being manipulated through the gangs. And so did that for quite a while, transitioned to social work where I worked in offender treatment, be that sex offenders and domestic violence treatment with adults and juveniles, people who are needing competency evaluations, so being claiming to be mentally deficient to stand trial, and going through that process, as well as working on psychosexual risk assessments for the court systems. So got a lot of experience in this area. I'm excited to be here in Oklahoma and to talk more about what some of those opportunities for social workers and how we can all get more actively involved in a professional way.
That's awesome.
Well, I guess I'm the last panelist, and my name's Lucy Mahaffey, and I'm actually a junior here at the university. I'm majoring in international studies, and I guess I'm kind of here I'm here planning the event, obviously, but I'm here to talk with you guys about I'm only a junior, but about really what students can do and how much of an impact you can have no matter what your background is, no matter what your age is, and how you can really just use your daily life. Thus far, I actually, when I was a freshman, I got a $10,000 grant to work with a local broadcasting company and the then Oath, Oklahomans Against Trafficking Humans. Unfortunately, they dissolved, but I was working with them on a curriculum on human trafficking for high school and middle school students, and even though they dissolved, the curriculum has been completed, and a pilot of this curriculum is in the works for this coming semester with about 60 teachers across the state. So that's a big step for just educating youth, and I think that one of the best first steps is education, and then once you know about the issue, you can move forward. So I can talk to you guys more about really what you can do no matter who or where you are in life. I guess, do we want to go through and maybe talk a little about really recent projects, just a few minutes, and then open the floor for questions or something? Maybe just kind of give an overview, a few minutes, or 8 minutes, or whatever it is.
Okay.
I think that we should start with, because Sonia and I work with the housing and the care, the hands-on care, while Lori works with, and I'm going to say it's an awesome street ministry.
Yes.
So if she explains how her ministry works, and then Sonia and I can
Yes.
talk about, so that way we go in order of how the process works.
We want to pass the mic though, just so live streaming picks it up.
So we put up this great big beautiful sign, and it said, all who are trafficked and all who are prostituted, just come in and feel loved and welcomed. And so guess what happened? In reality, no, we did not do that. What we did is we kept hearing about all these cases, and we said, yes, but we're trained to do this, and we're going into the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we're going into this and that. And so in 2011, we went and sat down on Robinson, and I'll never forget, I saw all of these people who were circling. And as the people circled, they're circling in and out of this neighborhood, and I thought, wow, this is a busy place. And then I saw a girl standing on the street and just walking up and down, and people would circle by and roll down the window, and I thought, she's got a lot of friends. I need to get to know her. And then she would get in the car and she would drive off with them for 15 or 20 minutes, be brought right back to the same location, and then from behind the shadows, a man would come and he would take the $20 that she had just earned and he stuck it down his pants. And halfway through the day, he went and he bought her a hot dog and a Mountain Dew. And I thought, oh no. And then I looked around and we saw anywhere at any given time between 3 and 20 girls or women that were doing the exact same thing. And so I called my buddy, Debbie, who organizes our street outreach team, and I said, we've got to learn how to do this safely and effectively. And then we started knocking on all the doors, because I think this is really a community-wide problem that we can see. We have one of the most visible tracks in Oklahoma where we are doing this field study, but our friends who we've worked with and grown to love really need a community-based approach and a response. And I think this is the fruit, if you will, of it's okay for men to be consumers and women to be consumed. And so with that, we've integrated into the schools. We do product drives really to keep ourselves safe. We have to have lots and lots of product. One of the things that we've gotten to go into the homeless camps and into some of the dangerous areas is somebody's donated a food truck to us that we're currently renovating to give away free food. And so we're kind of that on the ground, street level first reaction or first response. And so as we've been able to do that safely, and again, not everybody can just go out on the streets. If we don't learn the rules of the field study, we will cause those girls to be harmed or killed. And the same thing could happen to us. These are really serious criminal environments that we're going into. We have to know the players and we have to know the culture in each of those environments. This environment that we're in, it may be totally different rules, and we have a base in Amarillo. It's a totally different rule system there. And so sometimes we work with the kids, sometimes we work directly with the girls. In Oklahoma City, we're able to work directly with the girls as they're working. Our teams, unfortunately, then as we've met and we've just started to record, this is what the girls are saying. We either resource that need or we need to provide that need for those that we're getting to know. And unfortunately, most of our outreach has honestly turned out to be baby showers and funerals. And then as they get arrested, we go to the jails. As they're on the streets, we go to the streets. As we get to know them, then again, those wraparound services where they can come and volunteer in the clothes closet, we celebrate life with them. We're there for them, and not us and them. I think so many times with human trafficking, people have that mentality. I want to come and hang out with no boundaries because I want to see the human trafficked victim. And so it's not that we're working with giraffes at the zoo and everybody come and see. We've seen that we need them, and we have encountered, personally, we're faith-based, I've encountered Jesus in the lives of these beautiful friends that we've met as we wrap around and love them well. And so whether that's let's get them to the shelter, whether that's they don't want to go to the shelter, we're loving them unconditionally, telling them that they're made for something more than what they've encountered. And as a trauma therapist, there's developmental trauma and shock trauma. And I think, as we so beautifully heard with the example of human trafficking, many times it's not the shock trauma. I was raped, I was choked, I have a bullet. Literally, we just had one that had a bullet taken out of her head. But it's usually the things that happened prior to. And so we're seeing across the board, it's low self-esteem. And since we're here at OU where I graduated, I just want to mention the whole concept of all of this, that I met my husband at a fraternity party. And so, but the concept of strip clubs, the concept of arrangement finders, they say that over 150 girls with their OU emails have signed up for arrangementfinders.com. Over 5,000 men have responded to be buyers or to be sugar daddies. And so we've got to address the culture. And I love that it's coming from a college level because, quite frankly, 13, 12 is actually the youngest that we've seen where we hang out and that's been trained. But we've got to address this area from middle school, high school, and college levels. I got a call from Vice from another state, and they said, will you work with the girl? And I said, what happened? And they said, she met somebody online. She's a college student, grew up in a great family. Again, that low self-esteem. She got to know this guy for 8 months. She went to Dallas, and he locked her up for 2 weeks. The breakdown process happened, and then he turned her out on the strip. And then they wanted to know if I'd work with her with the trauma expertise so she would testify, and she never did. She was so broken. And so we've got to do the awareness and then the prevention, and especially I feel like from what more awesome thing can we do than with the most targeted populations to make everybody aware, and then we're doing a whole lot of intervention.
Thank you. And again, I'm from Dayspring Villa, and we work with No Boundaries, and we also work with the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. And when the women are able or decide to leave the sexual human trafficking situation that they're in, and when they come to Dayspring Villa, a lot of people want to know, what are the women like? What happens? And 3 years ago, we were just certified as a domestic violence shelter. And the State Attorney General's office put out, they have statutes, and we have to be certified to be able to help domestic violence victims. And they put out statutes that said human trafficking, human sexual trafficking. And we thought, hey, everybody has to do that. There's 29 other shelters. Everybody's going to be certified. And we found out it was a choice. And the board of Dayspring Villa met, and they said, if we don't help this population, who's going to help this population? And we went, we will. I knew how to spell human trafficking, and that's about as far as it went. And I remember telling my executive director, do you know what you're doing? And she goes, no, but God does. I was like, okay. We met with a sheriff that works in the area of Tulsa where prostituted women are and pimps, and he came to talk to us at Dayspring Villa, and he said, I just want to give you a heads up. We said, what kind of heads up would that be? And he said, you have opened yourself up to a whole new diabolical evil. And he said, you better get ready. And we went, okay, we'll get right on that. But now, 3 years later, I look back on it, oh my goodness. People that want to come and volunteer at Dayspring, when we were first certified, we would get phone calls, and it is a buzzword. It is out there, and people want to help, but they don't know how to help. So I hope today you learn how can help. But we did get phone calls from the beginning, and I promise you, it was Boy Scouts and Girl Scout troops that would call and say, we're doing a community badge. Can we come and look at the human trafficking victims? Am I being punked? What? No, we just want to come look at. I go, we don't do that here. Okay. Volunteers, I just want to come and love on the women. The panel, do you think human trafficking victims want to be loved on and hugged on? No. If you hear, we also get phone calls to this day about, we want to go rescue these women. We want to go into the strip clubs. We want to go out. Can you come train us on how to do that? I go, would you go into a drug cartel's closet and steal all of their cocaine? No. Okay, don't go steal. They're women. Okay, leave it to the experts. Okay. But when the women come to Dayspring Villa, and let's say that No Boundaries brings a guest to Dayspring Villa, and they walk in and that door shuts, you have never seen somebody so scared in their whole entire life. Because even though it was their pimp, he took care of them. And they're in a building with a bunch of strangers looking at them going, do you want something to eat? What do I have to do? I had one girl say, who do I have to take care of to get a sandwich around here? And one of our staff members goes, what? She goes, who do I have to take care of? And I went, oh, no. Anything you get here, God provides. You don't have, and the mentality of them trying to understand that they can get something for nothing and they don't have to work or sell themselves to get food, clothing, or housing is beyond them. There is no trust level. You have to start at ground zero, and you have to understand trauma. 3 years later, we kind of have a clue now. We've helped almost 80 women, and I had talked earlier when Amanda was speaking about success stories. And when the women are in that world, and they've been brought up where they don't trust anybody, and they look at you like, you really want something from me, but I just don't trust you yet. What we have to remember is we've planted the seed. We've shared with them that there is a way for help. We've shared with them that they don't have to live that life. But as at working at the shelter, I also have to be prepared that they're probably going to turn around and walk out that door. because they don't trust. And but the thing is, when they do get picked up, or if they do get in a hard situation, we had one human trafficking survivor tell the police, "I just want to go home." And they go, "Where is it?" And she said, "Dayspring Villa." And the police called us and we said, "Bring her back." And so once they learn that safety and you start to build that trust, the average number of times a woman leaves her abuser in domestic violence is 13 times. I cannot tell you how many times that would be in human trafficking. We have one guest that's been there 8 times. And you know what? If she leaves, she's going to come back and she's going to stay longer. And every single time she stays longer. But you do get to see hope in them. You do see them grow. And as students, you're saying, what can I do? If you become psychiatrists or psychologists, donate your time pro bono or turn yourself into a nonprofit organization and say, I've been called, this is what I have to do. Because this is just an opinion, this is not factual. I don't have any data to base it on, but I have my experience to base it on. Women that come in that are rescued from human trafficking, if they can get in counseling within 24 hours, they will stay. Because they have experiences and trauma that it's outside of my scope. I'm an assistant director. My master's is in healthcare administration. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a therapist. But they need tools to how to deal with their trauma. And so what do you want to be when you grow up? If you want to work with human trafficking victims, please talk about the mental health field. Licensed social worker to come and visit with them. If you're wondering what you can do now, donate things. Have a drive. We do not go and buy toiletries for these women. We do not buy clothes for them. If you want to do a clothes drive and take it to the shelter, these people have babies. If you want to bring diapers, new underwear, little kids' underwear, women's undergarments, shampoo, conditioner, soap, anything that you use during the day to make yourself ready for class, these women need it too. We have women that walk in off the street, and I tell you that when I tell you that they have hardly any clothes on, I am telling you that I have gone to the storeroom before and got a robe on and put the robe around them because they have nothing. But when they come to Dayspring Villa and they are able to utilize the things that you bring to them, you are helping somebody directly. And I just want you to know that even though you may not have that hands-on care, you've got the care that they need. You're getting them through day to day to day.
Well, as I mentioned, we've been providing emergency services for about a year now, a little under a year, and we receive our referrals. We do have a hotline number, but majority of our referrals are going to come from law enforcement, or they're going to come through partner agencies, saying, do you have an open bed? We have a young woman, she's in need of assistance. So really our goal is to provide physical safety. That's our number one goal, is to provide physical safety and to be able to see these women come from a point of crisis to stabilization. So I can tell you that the way the program is structured, it's 12 weeks typically, but we've had women stay days, and also up to 8-9 months is the longest one. So we're going to work with that young woman according to where she's at, what her needs are, what the support system is. And we say that our niche is the love, the interested, compassionate love, and facilitation of resources. So we had a young girl come in, and she is part Native American, and there are lots of grants and lots of opportunities available. They pay for universities and driver's license, and so just accessing those resources. So at best, we're master facilitators. We keep them safe and we love them and care for them, but we thrive on community connections and relationships with experts we have a great counseling relationship with North Care. That's where our women are referred instantly. Most of them. We do have a licensed art therapist that comes in. So just these, based on what the women's needs are from, as she mentioned, they come in with children. We've got one now that's 9 months pregnant. So she's going to need everything. I would say the majority of these women, I think all but 2, did encounter some sexual abuse as a child or an adolescent. So that's something like these young ladies were saying. There is lots of hurt, and there's high amount of trauma. Also, these women all, at many times, are estranged from their family members. They've been isolated. If it's this current situation that they were in, or even if they weren't, there was a fight, there's some kind of, as a mom could be had substance abuse, or there's just not a good relationship. So the trust level is zero. The attachments, there aren't really any healthy attachments at that point. And what Susan said was correct. We've heard so many times from the young women that the biggest thing that impacted them was that all of these people, for example, we're primarily volunteer run. So when we have volunteers come through the door 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and love on them and care for them, and there's nothing, we don't receive monetary benefit for that. That's impactful. The fact that they have a roof over their head, they have 3 meals, even though, they still want McDonald's every day, but, they've got meals and access to services. So that to them is really, it's mind-blowing, because you're right. They do say, what do I owe somebody for this? Another devastating thing is we've been fortunate and been able to have some great community partners and work with these young women to obtain jobs in the environment, not just through partners, but through their own efforts, just in helping them with their interview skills and applying for jobs. And guys, I have to tell you, there's almost nothing more devastating than when these young women go to work and it's $8 an hour, and there's this constant internal struggle inside where they say, in 1 hour I can make 1,000, and you want me to go work. Now I'm supposed to go work 4 weeks for what I can make in 1 hour. That money, the money and the lifestyle is enticing. And I don't have a comeback for that. I really don't have a comeback for that. And so that's just an example of, I can honestly go there with her in my mind and say, that's a lot of money for 1 hour. So it's been an honor, it's been a joy, and again, these conferences, these times are so important because yes, we need social workers, we need case managers, we need, it's small things, we need someone to go grocery shopping for the shelter each week. It could be that you have a fundraiser, you host a fundraiser, a clothing drive. We do a lot too in the community with prevention and with speaking out against this crime. So I tell you what, youth groups, middle schools, churches, I don't know how many of you have children, but I have a 17-year-old. I'm very, very in her business. And that includes her friend's business as well. And what's going on with the friends, and I've made no bones about that. We've got social media openness, and no, she can't have Snapchat, and even though everybody else can, but we talk. There's that open dialogue and the interested what's going on in your life. And so be a mentor. Be somebody who knows all your children's friends and knows their parents too, and knows where they hang out on 39th Street at night or how we can help. So that's it.
This might be a good point for us to go ahead and take a few questions for these first 3 panelists as they were kind of talking around a centralized theme, and then we'll transition to the next 2. Yeah.
Is there a centralized form for people who do want to help something? Does the Zarrow college have the contact information if we know of a group that wants to say donate? How do they get?
We both have information, or we all 3 have information, correct? We've got our phone numbers here, our information on our services and our current needs. So I would say let's connect on that. Yeah.
Also, for every organization that you've seen here today, the student panels, all the booths, that's all on the Off the Market website, and I think everyone should have a link to that. You've probably gotten a billion emails from me, so, yeah.
And the girls that are out on the street, this is a really cool time, is for outreach, because the girls that are out being trafficked, they usually have had their kids taken away. but they'll have visitation over the Christmas holidays, and they'll either have to hide money from the pimp or have dirty money to go get their kids presents. And so we do over 1,000 presents for kids, for the girls who've been trafficked and in those at-risk schools, and you guys, with just a constant need for activities, we could never run out of product, whether it be, I couldn't believe we knocked on the neighborhood where the trafficking's happening, and there were kids without running water, without electricity. It's just unbelievable the needs. We're used to working in overseas, and to see the needs that are right here in our city. I mean, we could take you 20, again, we're not going to the zoo to see the giraffes, but we could take you and show you girls that are being prostituted or trafficked 20, 30 minutes away from here on our watch. And so that kind of thing is absolutely huge.
Have a birthday party and have them bring birthday presents for small kids to your birthday party. We have some people do that, and you know, they do have kids that they don't get to see, but they'll come and it kills them. Can we have a present? And when you give them a present, we let them wrap it and it's theirs and they take it.
Firsthand and hearing a little bit about their experience working, in this particular industry. What would you say is, would you say, I don't think necessarily a majority of the women are being forced, coerced into this type of job? What would you say is that the commonness of people who are in this position because they're forced to be there, being actively threatened, they would be in danger if they tried to leave, or, as opposed to women who choose this lifestyle, choose this type of profession, and for those women, what would you say your experience is the motivation there? You said, you mentioned money, but in abuse, I think there are a number of factors that are probably causing this. So just generally, what would you say?
The women that come to, the majority of the women that come to Dayspring Villa, people will say, oh, did you reunite them with their parents? We've never had somebody that was kidnapped and put into human trafficking. You know how, like Mike was saying, they're scooped up off the street? It's not like that. The majority of the women that we help, it started when they were very vulnerable, when they were younger, when they got the boyfriend, and then the boyfriend said, hey, you know what, all this money I've been spending on you, I'm broke and I need you to go help my friend over here and earn some money, and we have to pay the bills. And he took pictures of her. I'm gonna call your dad, I'm gonna show your mom and dad these pictures. I find that it's blackmail, and then once they're pushed down so far and the trauma is so great and their self-confidence is so low, and I had one girl ask me, she goes, do you ever think I'm gonna stop feeling so nasty? We find bleach bottles in women's rooms where they're washing with bleach. It happens to where their self-confidence is so low that they have absolutely nowhere else to turn. And like the one girl said, it's like I'm out of my body. He just puts me to work. He shoots drugs into me, and I just go do what he does, because if I don't, he's gonna kill my mom and he's gonna kill my dad. And it's just that brainwashing and that threatening. That is the majority of the women that we work with. And that's why there's no trust, is because they've been lied to all of their life.
We haven't had to learn any foreign language. It's been stateside for us. We come into contact with literally hundreds and thousands that are out in the element. The statistic is 90% of those who are being prostituted are being trafficked. And even with our friends, as we get to know them initially, they never ever present as a trafficking victim. They always present as, this is what I want to do and I'm out here. And then as the story unfolds, they have a pimp who they usually refer to as boyfriend. We see the common denominator is low self-esteem. And if we can speak into that identity, the pimps thank us for the American families, because the girls are already broken. And so we've heard the term breaking their spirit, and that the girls, if they've been sexually abused growing up in our homes in America where they should have been able to trust the person that violated them, then it's really easy for the pimp to swoop in. And we are working with a 13-year-old. We got a call 15 months ago. A 13-year-old went to a party. Parents were afraid she met a pimp, and she did, and she disappeared for 15 months until, thankfully, Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics got her. She thinks that the pimp, who's 27, graduated from Oklahoma City Public Schools. She still thinks he's boyfriend. He had a bottom girl. She was trained by the bottom girl. She had over 2,000 sexual encounters during that time, which goes back in my question. Over 2,000 men in 15 months bought a 13 and a 14-year-old. And then she made over $300,000 for the pimp. She sees none of it. She's making $2,000 a day that's going to him, but he's buying her the jewelry and the hair. And so I think it's really important to understand intermittent conditioning and trauma bonding. So it's the high of all highs. They're showered with rewards. It's so sporadic, and there's the most horrific abuse with this power differential that they're lured into because of low self-esteem. So they're not typically, that from what we've seen out on the street, they're not locked in the basement. In fact, we have to keep them away from the pimp, or
Yeah.
they'll be calling the pimp back
That's
into
it.
that environment. And the pimp's not even referred to as pimp. It's boyfriend.
I'll say a couple things real quick. We have had, in our year, we've had 2 international cases, Mandarin cases. Had to use Google Translate a lot, and also work with some interpreters. And we did find that those, just because of where they grew up and how they think, they're definitely a lot more closed, and took a lot more time. There was even more fear there. And I'm assuming because they can't communicate naturally as well. You're all of a sudden in a place and they're strangers and no one speaks your language. And so we have gone through some of that. What I can say, there's a couple points I want to make really quickly. 3/4 of the young women that have come through our home have also themselves been in the DHS system at one point in time or another. And so that, as well as this social media, Facebook plays a huge aspect in that. You know, these men, like I love what Mike said about a fake person having over 700 friends. What are, you know, they target these certain age groups and their friends, and where do you hang out and what's going on, and oh, you and your mom works nights and you and your mom don't get along, and you know, let me take care of you. I can give you the better life. And many of these women, they do fall into this trap of, and we've seen this several times, where a young woman is actually, there's a lineup of women that are working with a man and their boss, but they are convinced that he's going to marry them. They are convinced that, and they know about these women, but at the end of the night, he's coming home to them. And so there's also, it is the low self-esteem, it's the hurts, it's wanting and needing that love and acceptance. And everybody wants that. That is something that we were built to thrive on, but it's been misplaced because of lack of healthy support system and just them not being protected and feeling really loved and valued, so.
Thank you.
Do we pick?
Go ahead and take maybe one more question, and then we'll make sure that Dr. McLeod and Lucy get their time.
This is directed to the PT shelters. As you know, many victims of abuse use substance to self-medicate. Do your shelters provide any kind of treatment facility in the shelter for drug rehabilitation, or do they have to find that outside?
The question is, to the shelters are normally, and I'll say normally, addicted or needing some type of drugs to self-medicate. And do we have rehab facilities? The answer is no. And I know that we have women that come in that have used 2 hours before they got there. And I used to think, oh my goodness, we've got an addict, we're going to have. The women, I find that they took it because they had to do it to get through the function that they had to perform. When they no longer perform that function, they're not needing the medication. And I've learned that there's addicts and then there's users. And some of the women that we have, they're not addicts because they're using it to get through life. And once they leave that life, I mean, because I'm serious, I watch and I'm going, they're going outside. What are they doing? Where are they going? And that just amazes me sometimes. So I don't know if that amazes
Yes.
you, but it's, you used meth 2 hours before you got here. What is up? And then, but now cigarettes, if cigarettes fall out of the sky, I will hand walk them to the victims, because sometimes they do fall out. I'll go, is that your package of cigarettes? They're not mine. But that you have to, there's a vice that they have to have. I mean, some use Snickers,
Yes.
some use cigarettes, and I will find a way to, because we don't use donor money to buy cigarettes, but there are certain people that come by with cartons of cigarettes and say, love ya, save the world, and we hand them out, so.
That's so important. We don't have a rehab within our facility, but we do have partnerships. And right away, we make that assessment. And we serve adult women, there have been a couple of cases where they've been under 18, but so they are able to make this decision, I'm going to rehab. I'm going to this program. And so we're able to communicate with them and work with them through that process. So I think all but two are, we're on some kind of substance, meth a lot, weed, alcohol. So definitely, and it's exactly what she said. It's a coping mechanism. A lot of it is coping, so.
And before we were certified for human trafficking, when we just helped domestic violence, one of our guidelines was if you use drugs or alcohol, then you're saying you don't want to live here and we'll find you someplace else to live. Well, in reality, helping human trafficking victims, if I had been human trafficked, I'll use drugs.
Yeah.
And I will not lie, I would use that to try to
Yeah.
deal with the pain. So am I going to discharge somebody because they use drugs? Do people come in sometimes and their eyes are a little blurred and maybe they're talking a little funny? Because if I ask them to leave, then I'm taking them to another shelter downtown where they're going to get abused like they've never seen before. We will walk them down, tell them we love them, cover them up, tuck them into bed and say, you really need to stay here, we'll talk to you in the morning. We visit with them in the morning, and like Sonia said, if they say that I'm committed and I want to go to rehab, we partner with different agencies within the community and we call them and they get on the waiting list.
All right, let's go ahead and review our panel. Is there anyone who wants to speak next?
Sure, well, I'll go. I really just wanted to hit on two major points, and I'm fortunate to have had the panel here that's done a lot of my work for me. If any of my students are in here, they would see all my ridiculous notes that I tend to carry around with me at any given time. And I think I'm just kind of reaffirming what I'm hearing up here already, that this is a complex problem, and these populations are complex and their experience is complex. When we talk about the survivors of this type of phenomenon, these people who are being trafficked and exploited into sex work, this isn't the first time that something bad has happened to them in their life. The research indicates a lot of what our panelists said, that they have strong histories of abuse and maltreatment and domestic violence, and that they've learned to cope with those things through the use of controlled substances and all kinds of other maladaptive behaviors. These women, for the most part, but also some men, have been through incredible circumstances in their life. And so when we're because of the complexity of that trauma and their experience, we have to recognize too that the way that we interact with them and the way that we try to deal with this problem is going to take just as much complexity to try to find solutions, right? So we can't think that we're going to come in really quickly and fix all their problems. It's something that throughout my career of transitioning for a better part of 2 decades, I've found myself wanting to be able to ride in on that horse and save people and help people, but that's where that begins. We can't stop there. We need wraparound services, we need multidisciplinary services, we need communication between different partners, right? So we need our criminal justice piece, we need our health piece, we need services around housing and employment and therapy and mental health and helping people reunite with families and helping find ways for them to determine their own future and to become empowered. If they don't buy in, if it's not their process of growth and empowerment, then it's going to be much harder for that case to be successful. So just kind of reaffirming what everybody has said up here. It's a substantial and complex problem that is happening in our house. This is in our backyard. This is it goes on in Thailand as well, but it's happening in Oklahoma City, it's happening in Norman, it's happening on OU's campus. It's happening right now. And so what do we do about it? Which brings me kind of to the second point I wanted to hit on, so I'll spend my other 3 minutes there. And so I'll preach about this all day long, I'll get going, right? So what do we do about it? We need all kinds of things. Anything you can do, we need it. The first step you're here. So we need to educate ourselves. We need to educate our peers. We need to share this information with our community and help to battle some of the myths that distort people's understanding of what's going on. These are human beings who are being exploited. That's the reality. They're not animals at the zoo. They're not things that are different than us. And were it not for the fortune that we've had in our lives, the blessings, the privilege, the opportunities, the support, then we could be in their shoes very, very, very easily. And we need to recognize that and get rid of all those myths that stand in the way of us being able to help. Once we can start to clear all that stuff out of the way, you can volunteer. We can find ways to do that. And I encourage everyone to do it. Because the more you volunteer and the more you become involved, the more you understand the complexity of the situation. You find ways that your skills and your talents and your assets can help contribute. And thirdly, I would call on you to commit to it. The people up here have. I'm glad and I'm honored to sit at this table with these people. We've made a commitment in our lives that this is our life goal. This is my job. I work to actively reduce violence, particularly that directed at anyone toward a diminished capacity to protect themselves. That's my job. In the middle of there, I try to teach and inspire students to get on board with that. I try to pull them along with me. I try to do research that can help us get closer to that. But my job in this world is to try to reduce that violence. And you can have that too. So you can do it in a multitude of ways. There are lots of different ways that you can connect and you can be a part of it. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm going to tell you social work is the way to go.
I might agree with that too.
So social work, with a master's of social work, and a lot of people don't understand, so this will be my little social work spill. You know, the majority of mental health services in the United States are provided by master's level social workers. The majority, not psychiatrists or psychologists, the majority is through clinical social workers. We're on the ground, we're doing that stuff, but that's not all that social workers do. So social workers are also community organizers. They're nonprofit planners. They're people who can rally communities, who can find ways to develop money for programs like nobody I've ever seen. And so there's a diversity in that degree as well. So if you're thinking about professionally, how can I do that? What can I do? You get a lot of bang for the buck out of becoming a professional social worker and getting that kind of training. If this is the kind of work you want to do throughout your lifetime, you can do a lot of different things with that MSW. So I would encourage people to think about that. And everybody's path is going to be different. We all have our different paths on how we get to where we want to go. But think it through and know that that's an option. I'll leave some cards around and I'd be willing to talk to anybody who's curious about it. Getting into social work for any kind of reason, but particularly these things that I'm passionate about, these forensic social work topics. How do we get involved and really advocate in that intersection between all of these different services so that we can find ways to help these people find solutions to live happier, healthier lives?
Well, I am not actually studying social work, but I have friends that are. I'm actually studying international studies, as I said, and I think that kind of goes to show that no matter what your major is, I have friends that are, my sister's studying music, and she still helps with this cause. So, I mean, anything you're studying, anything you're doing, just for starters, one of my friends is die-hard soccer fan, so they had a tournament, and they raised money with the tournament. So, really, whatever you like doing. But a little bit about me, I heard about this topic when I was 12. Ironically, that's when a lot of these girls and guys are being trafficked. And so that was about 8 years ago. And I kind of made a commitment that this is the top, I mean, that this, I was watching one of my favorite movies. It's about how slavery was ended in Britain. It's called Amazing Grace. It was a rainy day. I watched the bonus features, and this guy was talking about how it still exists. Changed my life. 8 years later, I'm still here doing stuff. And basically, you kind of heard about how education is important, how educating youth is important, how educating vulnerable age groups is important. Well, that's kind of what I tried tackling. It's called HOPE, Student Awareness. I actually snuck my business cards and information about it on the booth over there. But it's basically a curriculum that I made with a media company, and I worked a bit with Free the Slaves, which is a national organization. I talked a bit with some other experts on the issue. And anyone is welcome to, it's free, it's online, but it's 22 very short videos. It has interviews with an Oklahoma survivor, and it's really just about what human trafficking is. And like I said, the pilot for that's going to be next semester. But I think it's just really important that we empower people. And once they know about this, then they can kind of move forward and be able to know, well, this is an issue, but this is how I can tackle it. I can have a bake sale. If you do, though, please invite me. I love
Yes.
But basically, I think that it's just really important whether you get involved in a student group, whether you make just your own personal commitment in your daily life, I'm going to donate some money every month, or I'm going to just tell 5 people. Honestly, if you don't do anything else and you leave here today, if you just tell 5 people, that will have such an enormous impact. So I don't have a ton to say about the project I'm working on, just because we're kind of getting the statewide pilot for next semester figured out. But if you want to check it out, awesome. If you have questions, let me know. But please just know that you can make a big difference about this issue. And I guess we can open for some more questions if anyone has a few.
I just want to touch on the doing something, because I always felt like telling my story wasn't enough, because I was preaching to the choir pretty much. So I started a thing called the Caring Closet, and if you just put out there that you're raising anything for human trafficking, now I've gotten so overwhelmed with clothes and stuff, I'll just call Susan and I'm like, hey, what do you need? So I can just get you what you need instead of have all this stuff brought in. Last winter, we donated 75 to 100 coats because they needed coats, and it was children's coats, women's coats, just coats. She called me and she needed pajamas, and I had just gotten a monetary donation, so I was able to provide XXX and 3X pajamas. So just tell somebody that you're raising diapers, and you will be inundated with diapers for
They just want to help. They just want to help.
So, and I use social media for the good. I put it out there, and I've gotten donations as far as Memphis from my friends that live in Memphis, send them to me, and they pay the postage on it. So just tell them that that's what you're doing, and I promise you, you will get what you need.
Well, I think that not everybody's comfortable at the level of what you all do. And so I wanted to say that I think there are other ways to help on the preventive side. So volunteer for Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Get that child who needs to be loved early. Work with a community center, the after-school program. Work with the CASA, the Child Appointed Support Advocate. Those are ways to help a child and build a relationship where there's a chance that they'll say this is going on, or that you can help them to feel loved and have the esteem that they're not getting at home. So for students, maybe that's a way to help. It's not quite as intense as some of the things that you're able to do. And also, I don't know if any of you do this, but I think that putting a wish list on Amazon.com might help people to know what kinds of things you need. And then if you put that on your webpage, it gives people a way to easily donate the things that you actually need at that time. So
I want to at least make a quick comment on what Marilyn says, because I think it's a very powerful reality. Volunteering for those small things matters. It's a huge deal when you're talking about prevention. Because it's not like, the way I try to describe it too, when we look developmentally at people and how they find themselves in situations where they make these choices, and they're in these high-risk situations in their life. It didn't start off with like one day they wake up and they say, I had a great family. Or I just, okay, today I'll go ahead and sell myself. Like, it's usually a progression of things throughout their life. So if you can find ways to be supportive and be involved in children's lives, it matters. It has a huge deal. And I try to describe to students that it's like you have this constant, they have this trajectory going in their life of risk. And if they can have these positive influences that just keep on pecking just a little bit at a time, then you can kind of, over time, move that trajectory and push it in a different way, if that makes sense. So it's not like you're changing their world automatically, but you're showing them what a good person can act like. And those things matter, and it builds up, and it really, that is a way that you can actively be a part of keeping somebody from getting to those places where they're in the highest risk.
I just thought, this isn't exactly connected, but David and Susan Sharp also work with children of incarcerated adults.
Yes, yeah.
And maybe if you're interested, I mean, that's the group right there, that if we could turn that around,
That's
everything.
We
So
do
I don't-
research with these children of incarcerated parents. We know that a child with an incarcerated parent is 5 times more likely to end up in prison. These are super, super high-risk kids. It's not their fault. They didn't choose this lot in life. So yeah, there are ways to get involved and try to identify high-risk target groups to try to provide supportive services there.
I'd like to speak on the wish list idea. If anyone's wondering immediate things you can do tonight, if you go to the Off the Market website, there are 4 very quick things you can do to get involved. There's also everybody's information and links to their action pages on their own organization pages. So that's a very quick way you can get the wish lists.
I'll go ahead and take, this way we can start and stuff, so let's start doing the instruction.
I'm just curious, because you're taking away a fixed source of income. Has any of you experienced any sort of retaliation at any point during your career?
Well, really can't talk, we have had someone come looking for them, is as far as I can get, and then the police have been called. But you're right, they are looking for them, and we encourage the guests that stay at Dayspring Villa for sexual trafficking to stay in the building, because if they're out and about with domestic violence, it's your abusers looking for you. When you're human trafficking, you have a whole team. You have the girls that are on the street. We found her. They think they're going to get a reward for finding someone that has run from it. So, had a little bit of experience with it, but we just have, a lot of times, sometimes if they go out, they just don't come back because they've gone or someone saw them and took them back.
I would say we dealt with more of a threat internationally. There were some cases there working in the country that we work in is a landlocked country, and the borders, it's a high poverty rate, and the borders are very porous. So you've got people moving others in and out of that small airport to get to Joburg or to get to these bigger areas. And so we dealt with a couple of international cases. One specifically was a case of a Chinese gentleman, and he was trafficking Chinese women, and there was definitely there was a high level of threat and retaliation on that front. What I can say locally, we do a lot with safety planning. How many of you have heard the term safety planning? We do a lot. I think most of us, it's just something that we naturally do, but we don't call it that. But we do a lot of planning for what happens if we're driving in a vehicle, if we're out in public, if they run into somebody that they know, or there's a smell or behavior that triggers them a certain way. So we do a lot of safety planning as well to try and minimize the risk.
And with us, we're right where it's illegal. Yeah. And so we have to figure out what are the rules of the game. And so here are the illegal activities, and this is how they're operating, and then here's how we're going to move in, and we're going to have to share space. And so it's real clear what we do and what we don't do. We never put somebody in a car and transport them from point A to point B. And the best thing we ever did was literally move. We're all volunteers, so we have about 20 full-time volunteers and hundreds of people that'll help. We moved into the neighborhood, and so we first implanted a volunteer couple right in the middle of the neighborhood, not to house girls, but to house, so it's not us and them. We started knocking on the doors, and we're doing an adopt-a-block setting, and we'll rake leaves, we'll provide this, we'll provide that. Our street outreach team, which is probably 1 to 5% of the people who come on board, go to self-defense and bodyguard and surveillance and all of those trainings. But we've learned with the girls and our friends, as we're infiltrating into this environment, unless it's an underage girl, then they know that we'll just call immediately. But then we know the rules of the game, and everybody checks in, there's precautions and all of that. We've really been, I was standing at the little house we have, and the pimp drives by in a stolen SUV with the coolest rims I've ever seen, and he waves and I wave, and we just know each other. And so it's been really interesting integrating into those environments. Some of them are not safe yet for us to go into. And so, and again, we're in Capitol Hill Elementary, Capitol Hill High School. So as we become one of them, there's such a protection, not us and them, but us together mobilizing the community.
We'll take a question over here, and then we'll move in cyclical direction.
First of all, I like the fact that you call them guests. I think that's really nice. But you all had talked about, I guess you said that it was on average like a 12-week process. Do you guys have aftercare for them?
Here's technically the length of the program can be 12 weeks, but it's a lifelong process. And we find, for example, this young woman that after 8 months, we were able to help her find her apartment and a job. We're still going daily with her on a non-residential basis. So that's why the churches, the community support, you guys, it's that support system. I don't do the rescuing. I love them and tell them they'll do better, and they are good people. But it's the community support that really does help them get to the next level. So I think I lost my train of thought there. What was the second part of the question?
I just wanted to make sure that there was
Oh.
action there for them, because you had talked about different triggers and stuff like that. I know you were talking about different smells and things like that, that something might trigger something else in their head about maybe wanting to go back. They need
Yes.
aftercare later, after they've left your services.
There are several community partners that also run transition programs and transition homes, as well as non-residential services. So that's been something that we've been able to access based on the dynamic of their life. Do they have children? Are they over 40? Are they trying to go to school? So there are different programs here within the community that we're partnered with and we can help them get into.
It's the same at Dayspring. When they leave, they can stay as long as they want. Some stay a day, some stay 3 years. The average stay right now is about 164 days for everybody combined. But if they leave, we call it graduating the program, but they can still receive all of the services that they received while they lived there. If they want to come and eat every meal with us, if they can still meet with their case manager once a week. They can still come to Bible study. They can still have pro bono attorney services that we have for certain guests. The counseling that they receive. So it's like they got a bedroom someplace else, but they still come home for the stuff.
So they can always come home.
They can always come home. As long as they left on terms to where there wasn't a threat of violence, and sometimes they leave in that direction, and they can never come back. Sometimes we have to take a little break from each other, and then we work with them and kind of visit with them, and if it's a good fit to come back, that's fine.
We had a question back here.
The educational programs for the community, so women that are currently in these situations, do you have any community-based education for them at your locations?
We educate whoever wants us to come speak. We speak at churches and schools, and when we go speak, it is inevitable that someone will come up and say, I need to visit with you when this is over. And then we do help find them resources. There have been times where I have left a speaking engagement such as this. Somebody followed me out to the car, and we're on the phone with Dayspring doing an intake while they're out there in the car with me, and we get them to Dayspring. So the education comes from the preventative. We go out and we speak about it, we talk about the education, and then we just go from there.
Do you have any groups or anything, like support groups that you have for the community available?
The non-residential program, yes, we do. If they're a victim or a survivor, we have a group that meets on Tuesday nights at Dayspring Villa, and they can come and attend that.
If you're looking for general resources about the phenomenon and what it is, the Polaris Project is a website that has a lot of helpful fact sheets and details and a lot of information too, for just trying to educate people about what's going on,
That's on
what it
the
means.
conference website too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you go there.
Go to the conference website.
You can get it all.
There's a big button that says, what can you do?
We had one over here.
I was just curious how many victims that you help are like underage, like in their teens, versus people who are like not minors anymore. Is there a large percentage of people who are really young or not?
The statutes that we follow for the State Attorney General's office, we are able to help adult victims of human trafficking 18 years and above. If they are under 18 years old, then the law says that they go into DHS custody. We have held two 17-year-olds before, had them come and stay at the lobby till DHS could, they brought them to us, and then DHS comes and gets them.
But say also recognize too that at 14 years old is a high risk age. Whether we like it or not, that one comes up in the literature over and over again, in research projects over and over again. So teen girls are becoming involved, teen boys are becoming involved in this stuff. So even though we're limited by law as to what kinds of services we can offer to teens, this is very much, and especially with digital technologies and the way that that's being used to recruit now, it's very much a phenomenon that's putting particularly girls from the early teens in high risk.
Let's go with Amanda, and then we'll come back to Amanda.
I know you talked about girls leaving often a lot, and the social workers were taught to practice autonomy. How hard is it for you to watch them walk out and know that they're going back to it?
Vicarious trauma is real. We have a
Yeah.
counselor that comes to Dayspring Villa every Thursday from 12 to 4, and we provide that service to the staff, and the staff sign up and they get to spend an hour with the counselor. I thought it didn't bother me. I got to visit my counselor once a week, and it's real. I was telling Caitlin a minute ago, we were standing over there visiting, and you can never, confidentiality is big. We're not talking about specific guests. But I told her that somebody left on Monday, and I was in there and I went, "Are you kidding me?" And I looked at my case manager, and this little tear went doink, and I went, "I have to go to my office now." And I went in the office and I shut the door and I pulled it back together. But I was really, really mad because she was doing really, really good. And by golly, she better call back, and when she calls back, she can come back. But it breaks my heart. If you think that you can be in this business and you're going to be unscathed, you are in the wrong business. Your heart will be broken. But that's why you're here.
But
Because it's just,
I mean, you don't
it's
get in this
real.
to get rich. Like, you will not get wealthy doing this.
And our street outreach team, Debbie met with a girl at 2:00 in the afternoon, and they embraced, and she wanted prayer, and she wanted prayer to be safe and for her kids. And at 10:30 we got the call, and she was dead, laying out on Robinson. And so for us, the reality of in the illegal activity, they end up dead. And so how we measure success, and again, I don't know, we're faith-based, and I don't know how we could do this without the lens of Christ and who he is. And we do exactly what we can, and we love wholly and unconditionally without judgment or condemnation in that moment, and we have to trust him with the rest. And so our family, she had a little girl that looked just like her. We knew the pimp, and our community adopted that family, and a couple took that kid to the mall over Christmas and said, what do you want for Christmas? And they thought she had a fake phone, and that phone rang. And that pimp had given her a phone, and he was getting her anything that she wanted, 8, 9, 10. And so for us to educate the grandparents now, he is grooming her, he is conditioning her, and to get in that. But unfortunately, the ones that we're working with, some of them make it out, some of them take a detour through jail, some of them go to the shelters, and some of them die.
I think when you're doing this work, you're working with people in the crisis of their life. They are fighting literally for their lives. And you're not working with one person, you're working with people, coming in the door and every day, and you have to learn how to draw appropriate boundaries, because it'll devour you. You gotta learn how to do that. I think it's very important to have self-care and to go through some sort of training and have networks of people around you that can help you take care of yourself, because you want to help.
They talked a lot about women, and look at the 2,000 men, and what's the outreach for the men that, we have the victim, but you've got the people that are the ones, who's dealing with men.
We had a guy walk into our clothing closet limping, smelling like alcohol, and he had a new 21-year-old. And he's a 48-year-old male. He said, "The bee stabbed me in the leg. Will you guys help me?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so we have pimps and Johns walk through our doors. We do a homeless outreach. They say with the younger boys, the situation in our community is when they run away or if they struggle with sexual identity issues. In our Bible Belt area, 1 in 4 will be kicked out, and there's certain areas that we're able to go in as a homeless outreach to work with. We've actually had, I think, 2 men that were cross-dressers out on the track, but other than that, so there are different areas that we're seeing. But we've got Johns, and I think with us it's been the same philosophy as with their friends that are the females that have been trafficked or prostituted. Something's gotten terribly wrong. Nobody wants to destroy their family. Nobody wants to violate, and so if we could speak the opposite of that shame and condemnation and love and meet people where they're at. We had a pimp die, and well-known, notorious pimp, and the messages were, "May he rot in hell." And I said, we need to have the funeral for that pimp at the fire station. And so we had to open the door, but we had pimps, we had girls. I had more ankle monitors in that room than I'd ever seen before in one place. And we're just reaching out in love and establishing relationship. So that if we can reach one of the pimps, or if we can reach the Johns who are buying the girls, we can change things.
Well, I think big boys, I mean, I think for young men, and I have sons, but as a college student, and I work with big brothers, that's something I think that should happen, is to set and be a role model for a young male, to not do that to women. Because women, if there's 2,000 against one girl, somebody's gotta be talking to these big boys and be an example. So, I mean, I just think there's a lot of young boys, we all talk about the girls, the men need to set an example and be leaders in the community and leaders to the young boys that they can go talk to every day. Not treat girls that do that.
One of the guests that I spoke with at Dayspring, she said, if you could, because how, she goes, my main business, but what would happen is she would be purchased, and then the John would show her a picture on his phone from a porn show that he had watched, and he'd say, this is what I want you to do. And she said, he's watching porn, and then he's coming in and expecting me to perform what he watched. So if something's not bought, it's gonna go away. And so people say, how can we cure this? Well, it's not curable, it's not gonna go away. But if we could talk about the porn problem, if we could talk about the porn addiction, and if we don't watch it and we don't pay for it, and then there's not a need for it, then nobody's gonna bring in that phone and say, I need you to do this to me.
We're running close to the end of our time, so we'll go ahead and take probably 2 more questions. If there are any left.
Is there anything in the works for the teenagers, the 14-year-old that goes this revolving door through DHS? I mean, is there anything, a shelter in the works for them?
I can talk to that.
Okay.
We have my executive director, Wilma Leslie, is on a board that is working with DHS, because DHS has said, what can we do? Because they need therapeutic homes, they need women or families that are prepared to deal with this type of trauma. So there is a panel that is trying to create the standards to create the homes to help with these children.
I can speak to it a little bit more too. We've put in Dr. Kirsten Havig and Lisa Byers, who are in our Tulsa campus, and I submitted a grant this summer, and we're planning a research project around the intersection of DHS and human sex trafficking in Oklahoma. So we've partnered with almost a dozen local and state nonprofits and state agencies to try to understand what that process is, because these young people go into DHS after having a horrible childhood and being traumatized, and then they're just really incredible prey for the pimps that want to come around and try to recruit them. And so we're trying to dig a little deeper into how that phenomenon is impacting us here in Oklahoma right now.
Good for you. Good job.
What about male victims? They bring in for females.
We have
About male victims.
We have mutual agreements with other agencies within the Tulsa area of shelters that are for men, and we've worked with them. And we do get calls from men, or young men, and we refer them.
We've had a couple of different instances of young men. One was a call from the Polaris, from the National Hotline. And so we had an agreement with the shelter, and we were able to place him and also assist them in just meeting some of his basic needs and just facilitating services. So I've only in the last year, I'm not saying it's not a problem, certainly it's a problem. I've only run into a couple of referrals so far.
And men are welcomed into our
Yes.
non-residential program.
Yes.
And they can receive all the services, just they don't live there.
Right.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. Again, we're going to turn it over